Howdy and welcome to Intensive Mentor Training. In the past, this kind of training session has been held in group sessions on Zoom, but now we have so many mentors and you all are so busy that it's going to be very difficult to get you all in one meeting at one time. So we're going to try something a little bit different this year, and that is I'm going to record these asynchronously, push them out to you, and then if you have questions about the material that we've covered, you can ask in GroupMe, by text, by email, however you want to reach me. We'll be fine. Anyway, hopefully this will be more efficient and more respectful of your time and my time both. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. First of all, let me say thank you. Thank you very much for offering your services as a contract intensive mentor. We could not do this without you. We've had phenomenal success over the past few years with our bar pass rate, and our intensive mentors are a huge, indispensable part of that program. So thank you very much for offering your services, and I'm really glad that you're participating with us this year. Your mentees, they might not be so glad at the beginning once they get into the shock of bar prep, but eventually they will. And it's very gratifying to have their thanks at the end of the process, especially once they find out that they passed the bar exam. So thank you on their behalf and on our behalf. So let's talk a little bit about why we're doing this. So at Texas A&M, as I say, the mentoring program has been a huge part of our success. And it's the one-on-one relationships that the mentors build with their mentees over the course of bar prep that makes all the difference. And really, you're serving four different roles here as a mentor. One is encouraging and cheerleading. You've been through this, you know what it's like, you know what they're going through. So just give them that pat on the back, that shoulder to cry on, so that they can keep on going all the way through till exam day and succeed on the first try. Second, you're coaching. So you're going to pass out information to them that will be helpful based on your own experience and also based on the information that I send to you every week through these trainings. Third, you're going to report problems to me. I can't talk to every bar prepper. So I'm relying on you, the mentors, to talk to the ones I'm not personally mentoring and then report any problems to me. And I mean any kind of problems, like they have a death in the family, or they're running out of money, or they're freaking out about the bar exam, or their scores are particularly low. In future training sessions, I'll tell you specifically what I'm looking for, and I'll also show you where you can record that data, which brings us to the fourth role that you're going to play, which is helping us with data collection. So we're very data-driven and science-based in our approach to bar prep here. Well, that means that we have to collect data about individual preppers as we go through the bar prep cycle. And so one of the things I'm going to be showing you today is where to get that data, how to record that data, and it really is an important part of what we're doing here. I review all of the data every week that you all collect, and so it's important that you keep up with the data collection, and every time you have some sort of contact with a mentee, record that data on what I will show you as our bar tracking spreadsheet. Okay, so those four things: encourage, coach, report problems to me, and keep track of data. All right, here's the main message or messages that we are already behind on my slides. Here are the main messages that we're pushing out to the bar preppers. One is they need to complete 90% of Barbri or 85% of Themis. In the past, Barbri has said that 85% of Barbri was good enough to have a good chance of passing. Themis has said 75%. Our own internal data show that 90 and 85% respectively has a substantially greater chance of passing, or leads to a substantially greater chance of passing for an individual prepper. And in discussions with both Barbri and Themis, they have told me, well, students should really be shooting for 100%, because if they complete 100% of the program, then they have a very, very good chance of passing. In fact, it's difficult to fail at that point. Indeed, in the summer of 2024, we had more students complete 100% of Barbri or 100% of Themis than we have ever had in the past, and our bar pass rate was 97.6%. So let's encourage students to do as much as they can. Most of them are planning to do about 90% of Barbri or 85% of Themis, but that's something that you want to keep track on. Okay, message number 2 is don't fall behind. To achieve those high percentage completion rates, they have to keep up with the work every day and every week. So part of the messaging to them is keep working, keep working, keep working. Don't fall behind. Never take off more than 2 consecutive days if you can possibly avoid it, and really one day is better than 2 days. And if you have to go on vacation or something, then try to build up a cushion ahead of time, and then do a little bit of work while you're on vacation so that when you come back, you're not behind. Staying up with the work is one of the most important aspects of success on the bar exam. Number 3, in terms of stuff outside of Barbri and Themis, they should be aiming to complete at least 1300, 1500, or 1700 is even better. Multiple choice questions in either Adaptibar or QBank. Surprisingly, we have not that many students using Adaptibar this time, which has in the past been a big part of our success. So we're going to have to talk to the students about that, especially the ones who are on Barbri. But they need to be doing those extra questions that are not in Barbri or Themis, and the only place to get them is Adaptibar, or if they're on Themis, from QBank. They also need to complete at least 130 essays in some form or fashion. Now, you may remember from when you took the bar exam, you're not writing out complete answers to all 130 essays, but in the beginning, they should be writing out complete answers. Later on, they'll shift to outlining, and then even closer to the exam, the thing that we call read, think, review. I'll explain all of this in future training installments, just kind of getting the 10,000-foot overview right now, so just let it wash over you, but 130 essays in some form or fashion. The next message is practice, practice, practice. Watching the lectures on Barbri or Themis and reading outlines, while they are very time consuming and take up more than 20% of the time, they only contribute to 20% of the learning. 80% of the learning comes from answering practice questions. So you want to always be encouraging your mentees to answer more practice questions. And that's where the 1,300 to 1,700 Adaptibar or QBank questions and the 130 essays come in. They should treat bar prep like a full-time job where they are the boss and also the only employee. And the boss has to make sure the employee is showing up on time, doing what the employee is supposed to do. I guess you're kind of the boss too, making sure that you're looking over their shoulder and doing the things that the employee should be doing. But if they treat it like a full-time job and the main focus of their life between now and July, then they're much more likely to succeed. Another message is don't panic. Don't panic. This is something that is very doable as long as you take little baby steps towards completion every day. It's going to be okay. A little bit of anxiety is good. It actually motivates preppers to do more than they otherwise would. But the kind of paralyzing anxiety, that's something that we want to talk them back from. Encourage them. Remind them that they made it into law school. They made it out of law school. And they're going to make it past the bar as well. Just need that little encouragement. Don't panic. It is a marathon, not a sprint. They do need to pace themselves. We've had a lot of students already start prepping this week, and that's great. But I don't want them to start off too hot so that by week 3 they're burned out and need to take several days off. People who are doing 10 hours a day at the very beginning, that's not sustainable. So they just need to pace themselves and keep pushing at a consistent but hard rate all the way through till the end of the exam. And then finally, we're here to talk about life issues with our mentees, things that come up that they weren't expecting. Again, deaths in the family, illnesses, either their own or a loved one's illnesses. And that's the kind of thing that we've got to help them work around as bar prep evolves. So those are the messages. Those are the things that we talk about on a consistent basis with the people that we're mentoring. Okay, let's talk about some specific tools that you will be using. Those are going to be the Barbri and Themis dashboards. Now, I tried to pair up your mentees with whatever program you used. So if you use Barbri, you should have mostly or all Barbri mentees. If you use Themis, you should have all or mostly Themis mentees. So if you don't have anybody who's on Barbri, you can skip the Barbri section and just watch the Themis and QBank part. By contrast, if you've got Barbri folks, watch the Barbri part. And if you've got Barbri folks, you also need to watch the Adaptibar part. Okay, so I will put timestamps down in the video description so that you can jump from one part to another and not watch the parts that aren't applicable to your folks. Okay, let's start off with the Barbri dashboard. If you have done intensive mentoring before, things have changed. The dashboard this year is very different on Barbri, and I am still trying to get my head around it. So let's just jump over to Barbri and take a look at what that looks like. Okay, this is the new Barbri portal, very different than what we've seen in the past, and they just rolled this out about 4 weeks ago, and because we didn't have any students prepping at that time, didn't have anything to look at. Now we've got students prepping, so let's just take a look and see what you Barbri mentors are going to be looking at. Okay, so we're going to pick Amanda because she has actually started studying and started a while ago. And there are a couple of things that you'll want to look at every time you log into this. And perhaps the most important is this progress over time chart. What this shows us is the Barbri default schedule, which doesn't even start till I think it's the middle of May. That's what this blue line represents. That's the line they should never get behind. They always want to be ahead of or at least on that line. The red line or orange line is For those of you who did Barbri, you remember the first thing you did in Barbri is go in and set your schedule, like what day are you going to start studying, what days are you going to take off, and so forth. That's what that red line represents. So it shows that Amanda said she was going to start sometime in April. The black line is her actual progress, and it shows that, in fact, she did start in April, and she's pretty close to that orange line. As long as she's relatively close to that orange line, she's doing the things that she told herself and told Barbri that she was going to do. And as long as she's above the blue line, then she's probably going to be okay. As long as she's above the blue line, she can get to 100% completion in Barbri. So that's probably the main thing that you're going to be looking at. There are some other things of interest here, and again, because this is brand new, I'm still trying to figure it out. This top chart up here where it says completion represents the total number of hours in the program, which is close to 400 this year, and she's at 113.5. We like to record this as a percentage, and I'm not quite sure where that's going to show up, so stay tuned for a future installment that shows that information once I've got it figured out for myself. Essays is how many essays she's completed, and we can click on the View Details button to maybe see something. Maybe not. Let me just bear with me again. New tools. Not entirely sure how to use them all yet. Okay, it wants me to log back in. By the way, you will be receiving soon your own Barbri and Themis and Adaptibar login credentials so that you'll be able to log in. Hopefully before you watch this video, I'll have those credentials ready for you, but I make no promises. So let's try this again. So we're going to click on View Details. This shows us all of the essays that Amanda has attempted in Bar Prep so far. And only one of them has been graded by Barbri, and that is this performance test. They gave her a 5 on that. Everything else she has been self-grading. And this is the kind of thing that we're going to record on the bar tracking spreadsheet, and I'll show you how to do that later, but that's just where you get that information. She hasn't done any of the substantive graded essays yet, so we don't have that information to report. The multiple choice assigned MCQ, this is the total number of questions that multiple choice questions that she's done in Barbri. Sorry, that's the number that she got correct. This is the total number attempted. And what we write down in the tracker is the total number attempted and the percent correct. And those are the two numbers that are important there. I'll explain what these other tabs mean in a future installment. Don't need to worry about those. And indeed, that's really all the stuff that we need to look at on the Barbri screen. Now, a little bit later in the video, when we talk about the Bar Prep Tracker, I will show you how to record that information so that you have it available as a historical record of how your prepper has been doing, and so that I can review it every week and see how your prepper is doing. But now let's switch over to Themis. So Themis people, this is where you should start paying attention again. Let's get back over to that screen and pull up the Themis login. Okay, so in Themis, it's got everybody broken down by different jurisdictions, and we're going to pull up the Texas students because those are the ones that we're most interested in for the purposes of this discussion. And we'll find someone who has done some work already. So Michael Johnson is 21.51, so he's going to be a good one to look at. To get to his individual data, we have to click on Individual View, and then we'll type in part of his name, search for him, and there he is. So now we can look at his individual record. Okay, so it shows that he's done 21.51% of the program. Themis thinks he shouldn't even have started yet, so the ideal completion is 0%, so he's way ahead. That's why this bar is color-coded green. The Assignments tab shows you all of the assignments that he has completed and when he completed them. You can also look ahead by clicking on these numbers down here to see what assignments are coming up in the future. So that's something that when you're talking to mentees is sometimes useful to look at and see, okay, what's coming up next week before we talk again. The MBE tab shows how Michael is doing on multiple choice questions. So he's answered 255 questions at 67% correct. The national average is 59, so he's doing pretty well. The 255 and 67%, that's something that we'll record on the bar tracking spreadsheet. And then down here at the bottom of the screen, it's broken down by topic. Practice exams. The practice exams don't start until early June, I think, so there's not going to be any data there. This is something about Themis. Well, if you've done Themis and you're mentoring Themis students, I assume that you have. The students can't work ahead and do these practice exams early in Themis the way they can in Adaptibar, so there won't be any data here until Themis actually releases those for the students to work on. Graded essays, hasn't done any graded essays. Those are also have to be done in a lockstep fashion, everybody. But this is where you will be able to see the scores on the graded essays that your mentee has submitted, and that's another thing that we record. Okay, most of the people who are doing Themis are using QBank instead of Adaptibar, and that's another data point that we want to record. Unfortunately, QBank does not give us a whole lot of data, and when you're talking to a mentee about their QBank performance, you're probably going to want them to share their screen with you so you can see more detailed information than we're getting here. All we can see really is that he's done 126 questions, and his score is 78.57%. So we'd go ahead and record that in the data tracking spreadsheet. But you can get much more detailed information, like a breakdown on these contract questions. So actually we can get that here. That's new. Breakdown on the contracts questions. So he's doing pretty well in contracts overall, but not so good in third-party rights. So eventually that would be something that he'll have to work on as a particular weakness for him. Okay, again, this is just a high-level overview of what to click on the Themis dashboard and what it means. Continuing the tour of the dashboards that we have available, the next and last one that we're going to look at is Adaptibar. For those of you who used Adaptibar, it kind of looks the same as the view that you had, except now we can see all of the students. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the student list, and we'll look at Amanda again because she's been answering some questions. And then what we need to do is click on performance, and we want to see performance by student. It's already got her selected. And this is the main screen that we're going to look at when we're looking at Adaptibar, and this is the data that we want to record. So far, as of this week, she's answered 803 questions at an accuracy rate of 56.7%, which is okay for the early days of bar prep, not great. If you're wondering, we want to get that up to 62.5% before exam day. And that's not the overall average, because eventually the average gets very difficult to move after they've answered a bunch of questions. But on those big 100 question sets, that's what we want to look at. If she can get 62.5% on 100 questions, then she's probably going to pass the bar exam. Right now, we're looking at the entire session, and we can slice that down to last 30 days. It's essentially going to be the same because we're only less than 30 days into bar prep, and last 7 days. But those are two numbers that we're going to record because I want to see how their percentage is changing, not just what their overall percentage is in Adaptibar, but what it has been for the last 30 days and what it has been for the last 7 days. And again, those numbers are all going to be the same at the beginning because they've probably been studying for less than 7 days the first time you look at this, but eventually they will diverge, and hopefully the 7-day average will continue to go up and up and up, even though the total average is more or less constant just through inertia. Okay, so that is Adaptibar. There's some other interesting information that we can get here. One is her performance by subject. So we can see that of all the topics, evidence is her particular weakness. Probably needs to do some more evidence questions. And it looks like crim law is her superpower, doing quite well there, except for constitutional protection for the accused. So this is all information that you can get while you're talking to your mentees, and eventually encourage them to work on their weaknesses using the techniques that I'll explain in a future installment. You can also look at a timing report for your mentees. And let me just explain what this means. The red line is the amount of time that students have per question on the bar exam. So if they don't have time accommodations, that's 1 minute and 48 seconds. The gold line represents what Adaptibar calls the sweet spot. And I'm not entirely sure how they're calculating that, but it's the students are this student, Amanda, is most accurate when she's answering questions in 75 to 80 seconds, which is pretty fast. And usually when I see somebody answering questions that quickly and their percent correct is not so great, like hers is not so great, if I tell them to slow down a little bit and be a little bit more deliberate in answering those questions, they can realize a significant gain of several percentage points in relatively short time just by slowing down the pace at when they're answering the questions. Again, we'll come back and look at all this in more detail in future installments, but this is I wanted to give you a little tour of stuff behind the scenes that maybe you've seen before and maybe you haven't. Okay, getting back to the slideshow. So those are the toolbars that we have available. Now, the most important tool that we have available is the bar tracking spreadsheet. So let me show you what that looks like. This is a list of all of the JD students who are preparing for the bar exam. You probably don't want to see the list of all of the students, so we have filters available to you. What you do is you come over here to this tab up here at the top where it says JD25J, and if you click on the little thing that looks like a calendar or a calculator, I don't know what that's supposed to be, you will find that there is an entry for you. So let's say that I'm Mr. Klein. If I click on that button, then I'm only going to see Mr. Klein's mentees. Okay, so that's an easy way to limit the list so that you're not having to see everybody's people all of the time. Okay, let me explain a little bit about what we're looking at here. So we'll start with Kate Allred. There's a sample student here. Just I'll explain what that means here in a minute. Kate Allred, for every student, we calculate a percent likelihood of them passing the bar exam on the first try. This is assuming that they do all of the things that Barbri or Themis tells them to do, plus all of the things that I tell them to do. So she's almost certainly going to pass the bar exam. Really doesn't need intensive mentoring, but she was in the in-person preparing for the bar course, and a bonus of being in that class is that you get a mentor, whether you like it or not. So she's got one. So she's probably going to pass the bar exam even without mentorship, but you know, that extra encouragement may be what it takes to put her over the line. All right, so in addition to the likelihood of passing the bar exam, we've assigned them to a risk category, which is based on the likelihood of passing. That risk category goes from 1, which is there's going to be some issues, all the way up to 4, which is they're probably going to pass the bar exam no matter what happens. And all of these mentees are in the 4 category, so they're already going in good shape. And if you're wondering how we calculate that likelihood of passing and the risk category, it's based largely on 2 things. One is class rank in the semester before graduation, because that's the most recent data that we have. And the other is admissions calculates how the student is likely to do in law school when they are admitted, right? Based on undergraduate GPA, where they went to school, what they studied, and their LSAT score, we can make predictions about how well a student is likely to perform in law school. And then we have how they actually performed in law school. And the difference between those 2 numbers is a big factor in calculating that student's risk on the bar exam. So the lower they underperformed from what we expected, then the less likely they are to pass the exam. And this is based on data going back to 2020 that we had analyzed by some statisticians to tell us who's at risk and who's not. Okay, there's some information like email address, alternate email address, phone number, people who will always know how to get in contact with them. So if a mentee stops working with you and stops communicating with me, we know who to reach out with. The professor they feel closest to, so we can get that professor to reach out to them if necessary. Their degree when they graduated, whether it's their first time taking the exam, and I think you should all just have students who are taking the exam for the first time. Yes, I may have to do a little scrambling here of these mentees because I see that I've assigned Michael 2 people who took Barbri and 1 person who took Themis. I'm not sure how that happened, but I will fix it so that you've got all Barbri or all Themis people. Okay, we've got some like what program are they using? Are they using Adaptibar, etc.? Some demographic information, contact information for the mentors rather. And then we get to the stuff. This is where you're actually going to be editing the spreadsheet. Now, for those of you who have done this as an intensive mentor in the past, last year I had this form that you filled out every time. That was a huge headache for me and it kept breaking. So we're not going to do that this year. You're going to edit this spreadsheet directly. And what you're going to put onto it is notes from every time you talk to a mentee or have some significant correspondence with them, either over text or email, where they're expressing some concern or you're helping them solve some sort of a problem. So I have this sample student in the first row, and this sample student will appear on all of your filtered lists. So you can always refer back to this. And let me just explain, this is the kind of data that I want you to take, and I want you to keep it in this format as much as you can. So let me explain what this means. First, BB means that the student is on Barbri, and as of whenever this note was recorded, the student had completed 80% of Barbri. Barbri thought they should be at 79%, so they're actually ahead of where they need to be. They've answered an average score of about 55 on multiple choice questions. This is the old Barbri way of collecting data. I'm going to have to change that a little bit. Some information about how they've done on the essays. So this is a con law essay and they scored a 5 on that. They haven't done the evidence essays yet. The wills essay they've submitted, but it hasn't been graded. That's what NG means. They have a graded MPT on which they scored a 3. Here's the Adaptibar information. So their overall score, or overall total, 1,023 questions, 59.6% correct. Last 30 days, 502 questions, 61% correct. Last 7 days, 232 questions, 62.75% correct. So this is a Barbri student who's using Adaptibar, but if you've got a Themis student who's using QBank, the numbers are essentially going to be the same, except we can't get the last 7 and last 30-day data. It'll just be a total report for a number of QBank questions. And then I've got some narrative notes, what we talked about. Did some substantive review or some technique review on how to improve essay performance. And then lastly, I color-coded this student green, which means that if the student continues on this track, I expect she's going to pass the bar exam. So every time you take these notes, record the basic data from Barbri, Themis, Adaptibar, and QBank, record some notes about your conversation, and then color code them. And the color code is going to be green for students who are on track to pass the exam, yellow for students who we're mildly concerned about, and we're a little bit worried that if they don't change things, they might have difficulties later on and difficulties on exam day. And then red is a student about whom you are very worried, and if they don't change things now, they are not going to pass the bar exam. So how do you decide whether they're green, yellow, or red? Use your best judgment. If they're falling behind in Barbri or Themis, then they're probably yellow. If they're consistently behind, then they're going to be red. If they're percent correct in Adaptibar or QBank is languishing in the 40s or low 50s, they're going to be at least yellow. If that continues, they're going to turn red. I use those colors to quickly skim the spreadsheet and see who are the students that I need to be concerned about. So please enter the data and enter the color coding at least once a week so that I can keep up with how people are doing without having to go into the individual data collection platforms myself. You'll notice that there is one blank for each student for each week all the way through the bar exam, because ideally you will be meeting with your mentees once a week and have this data to record. Okay, there's some other stuff on the spreadsheet that we'll talk about in future installments because it's not relevant now, but that's basically what we're doing is we are recording this information every week so that I know what's going on, and if for some reason like you go on vacation or you get sick and I have to take over for your mentees, I can look at the spreadsheet and see what you've already talked about, see how they're doing, and have that conversation with them in your place for 1 week. Okay, so that is the tracker. Very good. Let's talk about the actual mentoring process and how this all actually happens. Okay, number one, the most important part of the mentoring process is the weekly training. That's not what that's supposed to say. But we will have weekly training. It'll be something like the training that I'm doing right now. Yes, I'm just going to change this right now because otherwise it's going to confuse me in the when I'm creating the video later on. So weekly meetings is what it should have said, and the weekly meetings are the meetings that you're going to have with your mentees. This is the backbone of the mentoring program, obviously. If you have not already reached out to your mentees, then please do that soon and establish a time a mutually agreeable time when y'all can meet every week, either by phone or by Zoom. If you want to do it in person and it's not too far away, you want to meet at a coffee shop or something, it's not going to take the prepper a long time to get there, that's okay too. But your phone and Zoom is probably the best and most efficient, and that way you can share screens and talk about the data with them. Go ahead and get those meetings set up. And because the preppers need predictability in their schedules, make that meeting time, to the extent that you can, consistent. Same day, same time, every week. And I know that your schedules are going to change. If you've got a trial practice, who knows what's going to be happening in your life. But to the extent that you can, maintain that schedule because the preppers need that kind of predictability and stability in their already overcrowded schedules. Okay. Expect to spend about 15 to 30 minutes with each student. When I first started doing this, I thought there can't possibly be anything to talk about for more than 5 minutes per student per week. And boy, how wrong I was. Sometimes I get to the 30-minute mark and I've got to start a meeting with another student and I have to cut it off. They still have things that they want to talk about. So it's the encouragement and hand-holding part that takes a lot more time than you think it's going to. And that's important, right? So don't short circuit the process. If they want to talk, let them keep on talking. But eventually you have to, try and limit it to 20 to 30 minutes at the absolute max. But 15 to 20 minutes is probably how long most of those meetings are going to take. When you get them on Zoom or on the phone, start off with some, how's it going? I've been looking at your numbers. Everything's looking pretty good. And then take a deeper dive into the numbers to talk about how things are going. Answer whatever questions they have. Talk about the things that are coming up in the next week in bar prep. The two ways you're going to know what's coming up in the next week are going to be the blog and these training sessions and stuff that I put out on the mentor group me. Right. And then also record the data. So what I like to do is about 5 minutes before the meeting is supposed to start, I get on the various dashboards for that particular student and record the data into the spreadsheet. That way when I'm talking to the student, I can mostly just look at the spreadsheet and that summary of the data, and I also can start typing my notes while I'm still talking to them. Sometimes if I wait to take the notes until afterwards, I don't have time or I simply forget because I'm tired. So try to take the notes as you're talking to them if possible. I already explained what the entries mean on the tracker spreadsheet, like how much of the work have they done in their program, what's their score on multiple choice questions. So look at that sample student line at the top of the spreadsheet, and that will help you remember what you're supposed to keep track of. So in addition to the weekly meetings that you have with the students, there will be these weekly training sessions. Today is like a high-level overview. Future ones will be more in-depth, but they'll also be much shorter because there will be less to talk about for any given week. I'll talk about the questions that you're likely going to get from preppers that week and what the answers are, what the preppers should be doing, the things that are coming up in bar prep over the next week, what they should be hitting in terms of completion targets and scores on multiple choice questions and things like that. A lot of this will also be in the blog, so also read the blog every week when I push that out on the prepper group me. Okay. Expect to have some problem students. There are going to be some students who are likely to ignore your outreach, like they will never respond when you ask them to set up a meeting. Hopefully that will be a minimum. But if several days go by and you've reached out a couple of times to try and set up a meeting, or if you've been meeting with a student and all of a sudden they ghost you and are no longer talking to you, that's the kind of thing that I need to know sooner rather than later. So make a note on the spreadsheet, color that student yellow, red if they've missed several meetings, so that I know that's going on, because that's when we get either one of their loved ones or some professor with whom they have a particular affinity, or even Dean Adier, to reach out to them and tell them that they need to work with their mentor and the importance of the mentoring program, and the mentor is here to help, not to hinder, and all that stuff. And then usually we get people more cooperative and buying in. I'll tell you that the reason that they will ghost you is because they're getting behind and they know that you're going to nag them. Remember, that's your job, to nag them and tell them that they need to get caught up and to get ahead. So don't let that get to you if it happens for that reason. But we'll try to get them engaged again and communicating with you, because especially for the students who are behind, the help of a mentor to help them figure out what they need to do to get caught back up is just invaluable. They don't know it, but it is invaluable. Okay, we have some documents on a shared Google Drive to which all of you should have access. And I will put the link to that Google Drive down here in the description of this video. But let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. So the name of the drive is the 25J Mentor Help Files. Now let's just look at some of the stuff that's there. So one thing that's there is going to be the mentor training. So this video will be here as well as on YouTube. The slides, the agenda that I'm speaking from, every week I'll be adding to this folder. So whenever I say on the group me for the mentors that there's a new training video, this is where you'll come to find it and watch it. I'll put the direct link on GroupMe as well, so you don't have to go hunting for it. Let's see what else we've got. So I've got a folder of scheduling tools. These are tools that I released to the students a long time ago, and if they were in preparing for the bar live section, then they were required to complete the schedule. If they weren't, then maybe they did it, maybe they didn't. Even a week into bar prep, it's not too late for them to come and look at this planning tool. If you took the bar exam last year, you probably did something very similar. It allows them to input their start date, tell it what days they're going to take off. The instructions are all here on the sheet itself, so I'm not going to get too much into detail. And then it tells them what they should be doing on a week-by-week basis. Like if they're in Barbri, they should be doing this much Barbri every week, this many Adaptibar questions every week, this many essays per week, and how often they should be doing an MPT. So this can be very valuable to make sure that a student is being realistic in terms of the amount of time that they're dedicating to bar prep. And really, it's mostly useful at the beginning of bar prep to make sure that they are getting off to a good start with a realistic schedule. It takes about 500 to 525 hours for the average student to have a very good chance of passing the bar exam. So it's about 300 and I don't know at this point, 350 to 300 to 400 hours in Barbri or Themis. The 13 to 1700 questions in Adaptibar, 130 essays, that includes the ones in Barbri and Barbri and Themis and the ones that they do on their own, and however many MPTs, plus extra stuff like making flashcards and reviewing flashcards. All of that goes into the 500 to 525 hours. And if a student has filled out this hours calculator and the total number of hours is below 500, I mean, that's a problem that you need to talk to them about. Now, again, not everybody has filled this out. The students who were in preparing for the bar live, they have, and I've already talked to them about that, and most of them had pretty realistic goals. The question is, are they actually executing those realistic plans to achieve that goal, or are they already starting to fall behind of their own aspirational schedule? Anyway, that scheduling tool is in there for you to look at. And then we have also the Barbri default study schedule. It just shows when Barbri expects certain things to come up in bar prep. Note that it doesn't even start until the week of May 12th. There's another one for Themis, just so you can see without having to dig into the detailed schedules that are available on the platforms when things are likely to occur. Note that the Themis plan doesn't start until May 19th. In my opinion, that's way too late. And if students are waiting until May 19th, they're already, in my opinion, substantially behind. This is not really the aspirational Themis schedule. This is more like the, if you haven't started by this date, then you're probably not going to have a great chance of passing the bar exam. So anyway, those are the scheduling tools. We've got the Adaptibar and essay calculator. This is for later in bar prep when students are trying to figure out, recalibrate how many questions they should be answering per day. Also, if they get behind in Themis or Barbri, there are calculators there that will allow them to figure out a catch-up plan. Not really useful at the beginning. I'll explain it later, but it's there if you need it. The tracker, this is the spreadsheet that I was looking at earlier, where you can go in and filter it to your individual mentees and start taking records there. There are written descriptions of how to use the Adaptibar Dashboard. So if the video wasn't really working for you, this will show you step by step what to do with lots of screenshots, what to click on and what the data mean. Same thing with Themis. Eventually there will be one for Barbri, but because the Barbri Dashboard is brand new, I haven't quite got it figured out yet, and therefore have not been able to create a how to use it document. Lastly is this invoice template. And now is probably as good a time of any to talk about how you're actually going to get paid. So here's what you're going to do. Make a copy of this template, add your own data to it, like your name and your address. It does have to have your mailing address on it. That is a requirement of Texas A&M to get paid, to pay contractors. So make sure you're doing that. And then just keep notes of, just like you would for law firm billing, of every time you do something related to bar prep, starting with watching this video. Enter the amount of time that you spent on it. Keep your time in, what did I say, 6-minute increments, please, so 1/10 of an hour. And every week, send this spreadsheet to Susan Jantz, who's an administrative assistant here. I'll put her email address down here in the description of this video as well, so you've got that handy. And just send that to her every week. She will get all of the invoices together, record them, and then send them on to the business office. The business office will process them and then eventually pay you. And eventually is the key word there, because it takes a while for that first payment to roll in, but eventually it will get there, and then they will continue to roll in every week or so after that until finally we get caught up, and we'll get caught up sometime after the bar exam. So just be patient on that end. Now, before you can submit any payments and get paid, I do need the mentor agreement back from you. So I sent that out earlier this week, and I have it back from most people. But if you haven't sent that back to me, send it back to me. And then if this is your first time as an intensive mentor, you will receive, blah, blah, blah. You will receive paperwork from the business office So like a tax form that you need to fill out, direct deposit information for your bank account, because that's the only way that TAMU pays people, and some other stuff. So be on the lookout for that email and make sure you get those documents back to the business office sooner rather than later, so that when you submit that first invoice, there's not some kind of a hang up that will make it take even longer for you to get paid. So again, record everything. Every time you're watching one of these training videos, you're reading the blog, or reading an email or a message that I sent, right? Just like you're billing for a law firm, bill me for everything, keep track of it, and I'll make sure you get paid. The pay, in case I haven't said this already, is $35 an hour. Okay, so this document is in the mentor folder. Make a copy for yourself. You can do it in Google Drive. You can do it in Excel. I don't care. Just fill it out every week and send it to Susan Jantz, who will be keeping track of those things. Okay. What do we need to talk about next? Back to my slide deck, which is the only way I can organize my thoughts. FERPA is the next thing. So FERPA, which is the Federal Educational Records Protection Act. You have access to some very sensitive student data. And it is important that you not share that data with anyone outside our little bubble here. Really, you should be sharing any information or concerns or anything about any of the preppers only directly to me or to Professor Deutsch or to another administrator here at the school if for some reason, like say Dean Adier wants to talk to you directly about a particular prepper. Don't share that information with anybody else. Don't talk about it amongst yourselves, although we may occasionally have group discussions where we're talking about individual students. That's okay. But otherwise, everything is super hush-hush. Even the fact that someone is studying for the bar exam is protected by FERPA, and you are prohibited by law from disclosing that to anybody else. If you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to ask, but it is really pretty simple. Keep your lips zipped. Don't say anything. Don't write anything except in the official communication channels, which is text, email, group me, individual DM message if it's something sensitive, phone call to me or to Professor Deutsch, right? So honor FERPA, honor your mentees' privacy, and don't disclose any of that information. Okay, good. I think enough said about that. How to get paid, we already talked about that. You're going to submit the invoice. This is pretty much it. So lastly, thank you very much for agreeing to serve as a mentor. Really, we could not do this without you. And this is what separates the Texas A&M approach to the bar exam from what's going on at other schools. And I didn't invent this, right? I got it mostly from some folks at Florida International University, and they are the leaders in the bar prep field, generally recognized as such anyway, who are actually doing better than they are now. They taught me that this is the appropriate method to use, but there aren't many schools who are doing it the way that we're doing it or have such a robust mentoring program. I can't mentor the 128 students that we have studying for the bar exam personally. And I can't do half of them and give the other half to Professor Deutsch. We're doing as many as we can, but we rely on mentors like you. So thank you very much for what you're doing. Now, inevitably, over the course of bar prep, you are going to have questions. You may have questions about this recording. You may say, where is that paperwork from the business office? I haven't received it. Anytime you have a question, you can text me. Don't use my school number. Use my personal number, which I will put down in the description of this video. It's also on the blog, so you can just go look at the blog, and my contact information is there, including my personal cell phone number. You can text me, you can direct message me on the mentor group me. Actually, I guess it's just direct messaging me on group me. You can email me, you can call me. I will say that I don't usually answer the phone, so you'll have to leave a message. It's probably faster just to text me. I'll get that message and respond to it more quickly than having to eventually listen to some voice recording. And why don't I answer the phone? Don't like talking on the phone, and also I'm usually busy doing something else whenever the phone rings. It's rung twice while I've been presenting this video. I'll have to call back whoever wanted to talk to me. And also you can reach out to Professor Deutsch anytime. Sometimes I won't be available, but she will be. So if you don't get a response from me quickly, then maybe I'm traveling. So reach out to Professor Deutsch instead. Okay, that is about 45 minutes worth of material, and I think that's enough. Again, this is the first of what are going to be shorter. I promise they will be shorter in the future, but weekly training videos. Please watch them every time I push them out. if we have to, I guess I'll go back to having the once or twice a week group meetings. But really, last summer it was so difficult to get everybody in one Zoom meeting at one time that absenteeism was high, and it just wasn't worth it. So we're going to do it this way instead. Something that we've done in the past was during those group meetings, we would discuss individual problem students. We're not going to do that this time, at least not as a big group, unless later I think we have to. Instead, if you identify a problem with a student, then let me know so that I can talk to you directly about it. If I identify a problem with a student, like I've been looking at your data, and I think the student is doing worse than you think they are, then I will schedule a meeting with you and we'll talk about it, or at least trade texts about it. But I don't want you to feel like you're in this alone, or that I don't ever want you to think that I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing or how to help these folks. So I am always available for my mentors. Don't hesitate to reach out to me 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Some days and sometimes it will take me longer to get back to you, but don't hesitate to send me a text at midnight. I'll get it the next morning and respond. You won't wake me up, and it's not going to make me upset, because I am here for you just like you were there for your mentees. Okay, that's long enough. I'm going to stop now. Thank you very much for what you're doing, and I will see you in another video next week.